I'm going to explain a simple structure that should help you identify and keep you from accepting or preparing poorly written contract addendums. Whenever possible, you should use a pre-written contract writer or pre-written addendum that's been approved by your Association of Realtors or your broker. But whether you're preparing a contract as a buyer's agent or receiving a contract as a listing agent, you should be able to identify a poorly written addendum or clause to the contract. Hi, I'm Walter Borgen with RE/MAX Signature in Daytona Beach. This video will help you better understand the structure of preparing additional terms or a contract addendum. You shouldn't try to play attorney or prepare an addendum that's outside of the scope of your real estate license, but you should know what to look for in a properly written clause. The terms to the contract should be very specific and clear to understand to anyone who reads them. A well-written addendum or clause will contain the following components. A specific title. This will identify the purpose or the intention of the clause. The intention or purpose. This is what's being addressed in the clause. A specific time frame. This is when the action must be taken by, or a deadline. The last one is the end result or consequence. What's going to happen if this isn't done by this time frame? Now, I'm going to show you a few common mistakes that real estate agents make when preparing additional terms or special clauses. Then we're going to take a look at the properly written one so that you'll be able to see the difference between them. In our first example, the agent wrote the following in the additional terms section of the contract. Contract is contingent on the sale of buyer's home. That's it. Contract is contingent on the sale of buyer's home. As you can immediately see, this clause is missing 3 of the 4 components that we mentioned earlier. There's no title, no time frame, no consequence, or end result. So what happens to the buyer's deposit if the home doesn't sell? How long does the seller have to wait for the buyer's home to sell? I'm sure the agent that wrote this was intending to say that if the buyer's home doesn't sell, the buyer has the right to cancel their contract and have their earnest money deposit returned to the buyer. However, it doesn't actually say that. So let's take a moment to look at this addendum rewritten with the proper components by the Florida Association of Realtors. So let's take a look at an addendum when rewritten properly. So the first component is a title. Okay, the sale of the buyer's property. The next thing is the intention and the purpose. This contract is contingent on the sale and closing of the buyer's property located at. Upon entering into this contract, blah, 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 blah. We don't need to know all of that, but the main thing we needed to know was what was the intent. The next thing is, what is the time frame? So you'll see here there's a specific time frame. If the sale of the buyer's property does not close by, there's our time frame. Now our end result or consequence is here. Buyer may, within 15 days thereafter delivering written notice, to either terminate the contract or waive their contingencies and move forward. Okay, so it's given us the end result, it gave us a time frame, it gave us the purpose, and it gave us a specific title. Let's go ahead and look at one more example of a common poorly written additional term. Property must appraise at the purchase price. That's what was written in the addendums. The property must appraise at the purchase price. That's it. So again, we're missing 3 of the 4 components, which leaves us a few questions. If the property doesn't appraise, what happens? Does the seller have to reduce the contract price to the appraised value? Can the buyer cancel the contract if the property doesn't appraise and get their deposit back? How does the buyer prove to the seller that the property didn't appraise? Okay, so there's more questions that are left open-ended. So here's what it would look like if it was in the proper structure. It has a title, a purpose, a time frame, and a consequence. So here's the title: Appraisal Contingency. Our purpose and intent. This contract is contingent on the buyer obtaining, at the buyer's expense, a written appraisal by a licensed appraiser. Okay, so it has all of that, and it must appraise at the purchase price. Now here's a time frame. This must happen on or before 10 days prior to closing, or whatever date that's put in. Here is our consequence or end result. If the appraisal states that the appraisal value of the property is less than the above value, buyer shall deliver a copy of the appraisal to the seller within 3 days. And they'll have the option of either terminating the contract or waiving the contingency and moving forward. Now you can read all of the extra details in there. I tried to summarize each one of these to make it a little easier. And it's going to continue to go on here to say if the buyer fails to timely obtain the appraisal or having timely obtained such an appraisal fails to timely deliver notice of termination, this contingency shall be waived and removed. Again, it continues to go on. See, these are all the consequences if the buyer doesn't do what they were supposed to in the time frame. So you can see by that simple little written clause that buyer must appraise, or property must appraise. What is that saying? It's not telling us all of this information. It should be easy to see how using all 4 of these components are necessary to prepare an effective addendum. The good news is the Florida Association of Realtors has created pre-written addendums for almost every common situation. So there's really no reason that you should have to create your own. However, if you do, you should always include these 4 components to make sure your broker or office manager has approved. I'm Walter Borgen with RE/MAX Signature in Daytona Beach. I hope you found this information useful. If you did, please subscribe to our channel, and I hope you have a great day.